Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we are discussing the new Guerlain quads and the new Noir G mascara. So I've been using these for a week and I wanted to share my thoughts. We're going to do swatches, comparisons, and I also have several eye looks with each quad. I picked up 3 of the quads. Let's first talk a little bit about these. The packaging for these is a lightweight plastic. You can see that you have this metallic gold finish or mirror gold finish, and you have the Guerlain logo here. It says Guerlain here, and you lift up from here. So you can kind of grip the sides and then lift this up. It is a click closure. And I actually put the name of this one in here, but this one here is number 11, Imperial Moon. You do have a mirror. This is as far back as the compact goes, so it does not go to 180 degrees here. And it comes with the typical utensils, 2 double-ended utensils. These have a 6-month shelf life. They are 4 shadows with 1.5 grams each, and they are made in Italy. And I have to say, these formulas, they're very unique. And yeah, we're gonna get into the formulas while we do the swatches. Just for a quick size comparison, this is just a Tom Ford quad. So you can see that the Guerlain is going to be just slightly smaller. So it's a little bit smaller on the edges here all around. Okay, so they're going to be comparable in size, but the Guerlain will be slightly smaller. Now, just to show you, it does come with a little like dust cover pouch. This is a little velour pouch here for the compact. It comes with a little plastic tray with our double-ended utensils here. So you have a foam tip applicator, and then you also have, this side has 1 foam and 1 angled brush here. So those all come with the compact. These retail for $85 US. So they are going to be one of the pricier quads, still less than Tom Ford, but they're really up there in the premium, eyeshadow quad kind of market there. So let's go ahead and start off with some swatches. Now we're going to start off with Imperial Moon. As I mentioned, these do have different formulas. So you've got different formulas inside the actual quad, and it's just unique compared to others in general. So these are the 4 shades in Imperial Moon. And this black, it is going to be more like a putty-like texture. So it's not your traditional powder. It has some grip to it. It really stays in place very well. And you can see that it is a true black. This next shade here, this silver sparkly shade, this actually feels very metallic. It feels a little bit looser in the pan. You can get a little bit of fallout from this shade. It is more of a glitter, but you can see here that you could put this on very lightly and have more of a topper effect, but it actually has opacity. So if you put this on the eye, even with a brush or with a finger, you're going to get opaque color. And then this one here this is your matte shade, but again, this is going to be, well, the black is matte as well. This one's going to be a little putty-like. This actually has a little bit more moisture than the black one does. Now, that could just be a difference in the pigments because black pigments are typically a little bit more drying, but they both end up having a bit more grip than your traditional eyeshadow. And this last shade, which is my favorite, this is kind of like a taupe with pink and plum in there. And this is going to be more of a metallic satin finish. So it's going to be very smooth and finely milled. This silver shade is a little bit grittier. This feels a little bit more compacted as well. You don't really get, I have not experienced fallout from this shade, only from this silver. Moving on to number 94, Royal Jungle. I have to say, this brown here, this like rich brown it might be like, I don't know, this and that last shade in the Imperial Moon, they are kind of like my favorite shades. So we've got these 4 shades here in Royal Jungle. So let's take a look at these. This rich brown has like a touch of red in it. You can see it's a satin. Again, it's not like a traditional satin formula that just feels like a silky powder. This has a little extra grip to it. It's not, you know, not as much as like these putty-like ones, but it's almost like it has a little bit of that in there. So then we have this gold. This is going to be more of a topper gold. You can get this to be a little bit more opaque, but not as opaque as the silver is here. But it's also more finely milled than the silver, and you really don't feel it. You don't feel the particles. It's very, very easy to use, and I did not have fallout with this shade. Then we have this one that looks black in the pan, but you can see it's actually just a really deep brown. And this one is definitely very putty-like, more like this one here from Imperial Moon, not as dry as the black. And then last up, we have this really deep, more orangey gold. And this is going to be very similar in texture to this one from Imperial Moon. So it's more of a satin metallic finish. This is going to be smooth and silky feeling. And then the last one I picked up is 36 Mystic Peacock. I could not resist this blue. I mean, it's just a really beautiful blue. And then, yeah, we've got this like brown, more of this like orangey shade, this like aqua teal. So these are the 4 shades in Mystic Peacock. So this blue, although it's matte like these other ones, it's not really a putty-like texture. This one is going to be more of a traditional matte. It has a little bit more grip than your typical powder matte. But it's not like these more putty-like ones. This next shade, however, this is definitely a strong putty-like texture, very similar in color and formula to the one here in Royal Jungle here. Now you can see that the tones of these are a little bit different. This is going to be a little bit softer, but they're actually pretty close. This is just going to have a little bit more, actually it's a little bit more brown in it than black, but it's deeper overall. And then we have this more orange shade. So this is more, you know, it's orange with a touch of red in there. And that is going to be your satin metallic. And then this last shade here is also going to be a satin metallic, but it's not quite as smooth as the orange. There's a little bit, like I can feel a little bit more texture to this one. Not like the silver though, it's not like gritty or anything, but it's just not quite as finely milled. You can see that this actually has a little bit of a grayish base in it. So these are the 3 I picked up: Imperial Moon, Royal Jungle, Mystic Peacock. Now, before we move on to some looks and thoughts, let's take a look at the Noir G mascara. So you can see you have a gold round tube with the Guerlain logo on a black disc at the top. This is Noir G. It only comes in the black shade, and it is a volume intense curl mascara, and it's supposed to last 24 hours. I did not test it that long. You have 6 grams of product. It's a 6-month shelf life, and it's made in Italy. And you can see here, you have a curved wand. So we're gonna look at this with the demos as well, and you'll be able to see that. So let's start with the demos while we talk. So with these eye demos, I have a couple of them without any primer, but for the most part, I use the Viseart Seamless Eye Primer underneath each of the shadows. And I started off with the Mystic Peacock. You know, I had to test that blue right away. And I have to say, the colors in this quad, they are fairly intense. You can get a really beautiful look. If you want, you can go a bit more neutral. If you focus more on the brown and just a touch of the orange, but really this is going to be a more adventurous palette. And I think it's a really stunning palette. I really think the formulas in here make this palette work really well, because a lot of times when you have these intense colors, if you have a formula that's going to have fallout and so forth, you're going to end up with a mess under your eyes. You know, whether it's at the beginning or towards the end of the day, it can get a little bit messy. And I have to say, these really do stay put well in the eyes. All of the shadows that I used, really the only one that I experienced fallout with is that silver shade from Imperial Moon. But I have to say, I really like these formulas. However, I did notice that by the end of the day, if I had the shadows on, you know, past like 10 hours, even with the primer, I would get some creasing. And it's just in the crease area. It wasn't like major. I didn't have like the shadows sliding down or anything like that. And I still did not get any fallout or mess under the eyes, but I did get a little bit of creasing right at the top. So just wanted to let you know, now we have had a lot of heat and humidity here right now. So that obviously is something that, you know, increases your prospects of having creasing occur. But it's something to note because my eyelid skin it's not particularly oily. Creasing is not really an issue for me. So they're pretty balanced. And yeah, so I think if you have oily lids, you probably will have, you know, creasing at the end of the day as well. Dry lids, potentially no creasing at all, but I would say like balanced combo oily, you're probably gonna see a little bit at the end of a long day. Now I have to say all of these shadows go on really well. Now the putty formulas in all three of the quads, I would definitely recommend using a patting motion with that. You can definitely use some sort of like brush or your finger to kind of smooth it out from there, but I would apply it first with a tapping motion with either like a rounded brush like I used in the demos or your finger. And then if you want to kind of smudge that out and soften it, definitely that's something that you are able to do with this formula. You can shear it out to get a really light wash as well. You can also use this very softly in the crease and get a very soft color, but you have to be careful because since it is a putty-like formula, it's gonna have a little bit more grip. So if you accidentally, you know, touch it a little bit more firmly in one section than another, then perhaps you know, you might end up with it looking like a little uneven or patchy. So you have to do some extra blending. So the putty-like formula, I don't think is ideal for the crease, but you can definitely do it there. And I really, you know, it's your deeper color, so it works really well as an eyeliner, like really well. Whether you use it wet or dry as an eyeliner, it's, you know, it's a really great formula for that. But it also works really great for like deepening the outer corner, putting color on top of it so you just have a hint of that depth without actually seeing that shade as well. And you'll see that throughout the demos that's one of the things that I did. As for the other formulas in here, I think, you know, the satin metallic formulas in each of the quads, they perform really nicely. They are fairly opaque, but you'll see in the last demo for today's eye look that the like taupe pink purple shade that I love, that shade is not as opaque as the ones of the same formula in the other quads. So that one's a little bit more sheer. I put that one in the last demo. I put that on top of the peachy matte shade, you know, and you can still see a little bit of that color shining through it. So it's really just kind of taking that color and making it a little bit more metallic, cooling it down a little bit. But for the most part, these other satin metallics are fairly opaque, and you can put them on top of one of the other shades and, you know, you're not really going to see that. So if you want to see like a hint of that, you need to make sure you kind of shear that out. So I think the satin metallic formula works really well. The putty formula works really well. And if we're looking at the other quads, I really love the topper shade in Royal Jungle, that like sheer light gold in the upper right corner. It's a really beautiful, soft golden shimmer. You know, it's not like a unique color or anything like that, but I like how it's not messy. And, you know, it's just like kind of the perfect amount of sparkle in my opinion. So I really like that either as a topper or just like a little bit of inner corner brightening. I think it really performs well. So I think that one's really nice. The only shadow I don't love would be that silver shade in Imperial Moon. And I actually do really like it. I find it very useful. I think the color is a good complement in the quad. It's just a little bit grittier than I would like. I think, you know, it's not as smooth and finely milled as any of the other shadows. So I feel like, you know, that one, it could do with a little bit more, I guess, mincing or blending that out a little bit. before putting it in the pan. I just feel like that one should have been blended a little bit more finely. So again, the color though is great, and it's not really an issue. I wouldn't say it's like super gritty or anything like that. It's not that chunky or anything, but I feel like since it is a little bit drier, it just leads to, it's just not as effective, you know, because you do end up with that fallout and so forth if you're not careful. However, the shadows work beautifully wet as well. And you'll see in one of the demos, I used the shadows wet versus dry. So you could see the difference, you know, what they do. So we've got one eye dry and one eye wet with the exact same application. And you can see that these really intensify. And I have to report that even after, you know, going in, because I've used this with like water. I've also used it with the, what is it? The Esom Pro Mixing Medium. So sometimes when you go in with a shadow or a brush and it's damp and you go back into your palette, you can end up getting like hard pan and so forth. That has not happened with any of these. They perform beautifully, and you can't even tell that you've gone in with a wet brush after it dries. So really, really nice. They hold up really well, wet as well. So I would definitely say that these are considered a wet dry formula. I have not seen anything official to confirm that. As a matter of fact, these quads were available for a short time and then they took them down. It was sort of a preview event. They're technically a fall launch, so I'm not sure exactly when they're going to be coming back, but they are permanent. So just something to note there. Now, as we talk a little bit about the mascara, I personally have always been a fan of Guerlain mascaras. You know, they're also one of the few companies that have consistently had black, brown, and well, at least black and brown mascaras in their lines. You know, a lot of companies only have black, and this one only has black right now. Hopefully they'll make a brown at some point as well. But, you know, typically I have always reached for Guerlain mascaras because they're easy to find a brown shade, which is one of my favorites. And I have to say this Noir G mascara, it's definitely volumizing. You know, I've tried it without curling my lashes and I've tried it with curling my lashes. I still prefer to have a curl with them. Does it actually curl my lashes? I wouldn't really say it does, but you know, this formula is really unique because the formula in the mascara actually has a little bit of grip to it as well. A lot of times when you open a brand new mascara, it's a little bit too liquidy. You kind of need to, you know, let it, you know, air out a little bit so that it dries to the perfect consistency. This one already starts at the perfect consistency. I've been using it for a week, have not had any flaking or smearing or smudging or anything. It's looked great all day long. But this formula itself has a little bit of grip to it. So if you are angling the brush to kind of give your lashes a curl or a lift, if you hold that there, it will freeze there a little bit. It's not going to be as dramatic if you do not use a lash curler first, but if you are using a lash curler and doing that, you can definitely get intense curl that will stay on your lashes. And it's also volumizing. Now, volumizing mascaras, I love the way they look when they're not clumpy. And I feel like this one does not look that clumpy. So I really, really like this mascara. I will definitely have to do an update after several weeks to see, you know, how this formula performs after, you know, the tube itself has kind of sat out for a little bit, because again, it's already started at that perfect consistency, but I'm really happy with it so far. I love the performance. I love the appearance, and I just love that texture of it. As you're running the brush through your lashes, the fact that it kind of grips on a little bit, you know, you're not going through it too quickly, and I just find it really easy to use. A lot of times these curled wands, I end up making a mess on my face, like by accidentally touching an area. I feel like this one, you know, it's not hard to use. So overall, I think it's a really great mascara. Now, as for the eyeshadow quads, I really do like the eyeshadow quads a lot. I think they are fantastic. I love this new formula. When I originally saw that these were coming out and I read that they were going to have, you know, I had read something about the texture. I forget exactly what it said because this was many months ago now, but I had read something and it made me think that they were going to be more like the Byredo Nugget formulas, which have a little bit more of a putty-like texture. They're actually not like that. So we're going to take a look at that. You might have, like, these are more of like a dry putty, whereas the Byredo it's a little bit creamier. So I would say that they both have a little bit more grip than other shadows, but they're very, very different in formulation. As a matter of fact, I don't have any shadows that have quite the same texture as this putty-like formula. The satin metallics also are fairly different, but they're definitely much more similar to your traditional. They're just not as silky because they have a little bit of extra grip to them. So I would say that the formulas on these are unique. The only thing I don't love is the fact that I did get some creasing, and I tested that several days, and I did get creasing at the end of long days. You know, if I wasn't spending a lot of time outside during the day, obviously the creasing was very, very minimal. But after a long day, I did notice a little bit every single time. So overall though, I'd have to say if you like these color stories, I would recommend them. One more thing I'd like to mention that I don't love is the packaging. You know, I remember Guerlain's old eyeshadow palettes with the kind of the filigree packaging. They were really beautiful. They were like heavy duty. These, I don't like the plastic. You know, it's not like I want it to be super heavy like a Westman Atelier palette. You know, that's kind of like a weight. But I feel like the plastic itself is a little chintzy. So I'm not a fan of that. And although the gold looks nice, the fact that it is such a fingerprint magnet, it's that coupled with the fact that it's such a lightweight plastic, I don't love that. So I can deal with the fingerprint magnet if it feels like it's a little bit more high quality, but I feel like the plastic packaging is really cheap. So the packaging, in my opinion, definitely does not stand up to the price point of these palettes, but the formulas themselves are incredible. So I would definitely recommend them because of that. So let's go ahead and do some comparisons. We're going to start off with the Byredo Nugget palettes. We're just going to look at certain colors here, but this one here is Siren. We're going to look at this more taupey shade. So as I mentioned, this has a little bit of extra grip to it too, but this is really going to be more of a smooth, creamy formula. And you can see that it kind of melts into my skin even as I'm doing this. And it has like this different sheen. So you can see that it's going to be very different. Again, the satin metallics are going to be more like your traditional powder with just a little bit of extra grip. And then moving on to one of my favorites, this one here is Disco, which has the warmer browns. Let's take a look at these. We're going to look at, might as well just swatch this whole palette here, but we're going to put this one down here near Royal Jungle. And you can see that this second shade here it's a little bit more brown, but it does, these two here, if you mix those together, it's kind of a similar vibe to the one in Royal Jungle. And then these here are the last two. I have to say Disco is one of my most used palettes. And look at this shade here and how it compares to this brown. You can see this has more red in there, but yeah. So this is gonna probably be, I guess kind of if you mix those two together, you get a similar shade to the shade in Royal Jungle. But the big thing to note about these, again, is gonna be a formula difference and what that means for how it translates on your skin. You can see the kind of sheen that you're gonna get from the Byredo, whereas the sheen that you get from the Guerlain is going to be, you know, you can have a sparkly finish, but it doesn't have kind of that melted sparkle look to it. And you can also go more matte with it. So it's just gonna be a different kind of finish on the eyes. And obviously it's gonna feel different going on as well. Let's take a look at some Dior palettes. This one here is Grand Ball. And I wanted to compare this with the Royal Jungle as well. So we're gonna start with these three, skipping the white. So these three here on the outer side. And let's put them, well, we'll put them here actually, and then we can move things if we need to. So these are the three golden shades. I wanted to see if any of them kind of compared to this. So I have to say this palette, when I first saw it, it made me think of Grand Ball. And this deeper shade here, let's put that one right over here so you can kind of see the difference. This is going to be much darker. It's actually, here, I'll show you compared to this one in Mystic Butterfly. These two are going to be almost the same shade. Now, as for this golden shimmer, I guess this one here, this first shade here, is going to be closest to the one in Royal Jungle, but it's going to be, you can see that the amount of sparkle and scatter of the light, it's different. This is going to be a little bit more sheer. It's also a little bit more golden. It's more like it's this color and just dispersed a lot more. So you're going to get a different look with the ones in here. This is the Denim Quad from Dior. And let's go ahead and swatch, do these three. And let's put this down here. And squeeze that one there. Yeah, so I mean, this is probably the closest in color, but you can see that they don't match. Again, it doesn't have that shimmer in there. So it's gonna be pretty different. I don't think any of the other colors in here are really gonna match this blue. That's just, it's a beautiful royal blue. The closest that I could think of with that was actually in the Blue Velvet, but you can see that this is gonna be much more subdued. I mean, look at this. This is more like Wedgwood in comparison, plus it's matte. So I don't have a shadow that's that vibrant, that blue, that has that kind of finish, because you can see, although it's more of your matte finish, there's a little bit of a satin vibe to it. It's not a dry looking matte at all. Moving on, this is the Tom Ford Metallic Denim. This really isn't gonna match. We're just looking at this blue shade. I don't think this, well, it might match better than I thought. Yeah, you know what? It kind of does. This is gonna be a little bit lighter. It has a little bit more blue, whereas the Guerlain has more green in it. But on the eyes, I have to say that this is definitely gonna be a lot lighter, less, it has less presence on the lid than the Guerlain does. This palette itself is, you know, a lot lighter than it looks when you actually go and put it on. And Imperial Moon, the first thing it made me think of is Tom Ford's Nude Dip. So let's take a look at this one here. We're gonna swatch this whole palette. And obviously the color story is not identical or anything like that. You have this warmer shade here. You know, you don't have something as deep as this black, but you can see that this is kind of like a softer shade than the Guerlain, but similar. This again is gonna have a similarity to it. Here's shade 3. That's gonna be more like your taupey shade. And then let's put the deeper brown there. Let me move the taupe down here. All right, so let's put that taupe from Nude Dip there. And you can see that they are going to be similar. The Nude Dip is a little bit more brown. There's a touch of like plum in the Guerlain. But overall, this color story is going to be very similar. However, the finishes are what's going to set it apart, because all of the ones in the Tom Ford Nude Dip, they're like a frosty look. You know, they are all kind of that frosty metallic finish, whereas the Guerlain, you have different finishes in there. You've got, you know, more matte shades in here as well. So it's going to give you a different look. You can kind of change things up from there. So, you know, but if you have Nude Dip and you love Nude Dip, you're probably going to like Imperial Moon. However, if you have it and you don't love it, Imperial Moon might not be the right color story for you. So that's definitely going to be my closest match though to Imperial Moon. And then I also wanted to take a look at the Rose Topaz. This is one of the Tom Ford creme shadows that recently came out. So we're going to look at these. These have a different unique finish from other palettes as well, but nothing like the Guerlain. You know, this is, you know, they have a little bit of grip. These are going to be drier. They are, let's see, where can you put these? Put them vertically here. You know, they go on beautifully, but they are just different. You can see that this color story, again, is going to be reminiscent of Imperial Moon, but this is going to be more of like a rosy mauve shade compared to this one, which is more peachy. And you don't really have such a stark silver shade. This is going to be similar to your taupe. Let me show you that. So here is the taupe. Let's put it right here. And you can see how much warmer that is. It's actually more of a softer gold shade with some taupe in there. But yeah, so I mean, you've got some similarities with this one as well. Again, this one's Rose Topaz. And then I also have a few more quads to compare. These are Chanel. This is Splendor et Audace, number 306. This one's gone. It's not available for purchase anymore. Oh, I don't know why I swatched the green, but I did want to show you some of these colors. Let's start off with this orange shade. This reminds me the most of the one in Mystic Peacock. You can see how similar that is. Let's take a look. This is the blue from Splendor et Audace, and you can see that, you know, this is more teal, it has less sparkle, but they are going to be a similar color. I might as well just swatch this beautiful green because I have it on my finger. And then we have this like deep shade here as well that's a little bit more black than the one in Mystic Peacock here. But this, I feel like this orangey shade, this coppery orange, is a pretty good match. I mean, they're almost identical. This is the Chanel number 5 quad, and I wanted to take a look at this sparkly gold topper here because this is kind of the closest in finish to that in the Royal Jungle. Look at that. Yeah, they're really close. This one in Chanel's a little bit more gold, a little bit more yellow, but the amount of sparkle, the texture of it, they're very similar. So if you have this and you like that shade, that's what the one in the Royal Jungle palette feels like, and I think it performs pretty similarly. I personally really love that. This is one of my favorite eyeshadow quads. And then last up, this is 226 Tissé Rivoli, and let's go ahead and just take a look at this with Imperial Moon. All right, so let's see here. Put this one right here. That's the first shade. That's going to be too deep. Then we have kind of this lighter shade that's not really going to go with anything. And then this is the last shade here. You can see that's going to be more brown. And then let's see if we can squeeze in, just put it here. But that's going to be more of a softer brown. So that's really not going to go so well with Imperial Moon. But that's kind of the closest Chanel quad that I have to Imperial Moon. Splendor et Audace, I think, is a really good comparison though for Mystic Peacock, aside from the fact that it does not have that bright blue, which is, you know, kind of why you would buy that particular quad in my opinion. If you've enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe if you haven't already and hit the notification bell so you know when my next one pops up. But I have to say that overall, I think that these are really great products. I'm so happy that Guerlain has come out with a new permanent eyeshadow line. Again, I would say that the pros for the eyeshadows are definitely going to be the formula and the colors. You know, I think the color stories, you've got some more traditional ones, but I think you also have some that are a little bit different than things that are on the market right now. But the standout is the formulas and their performance. The cons for me would be the packaging and the fact that they will crease after a long day. But I think the actual texture of these is so great that I would buy more of these regardless of those. Those are like minor to me. And then the Noir G mascara, I really like it. I think it's fantastic. So I will definitely keep you updated on how it performs over the next like month or so. And we'll see, you know, what happens as the tube starts to get older and so forth. So definitely stay tuned and see how that performs. And I will of course let you know as soon as I see the quads and the mascara pop back up again. If you have not seen the Guerlain fall collection yet, the photos of it, they also have these amazing lipsticks and butterfly cases coming out, and there are also gonna be new eyeliners. So I really cannot wait for the rest of that. So we'll be seeing that hopefully soon. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video and give me a thumbs up. I'll see you very soon.